Tunnel realities and imprints. Let's try Dr. Leary's perspective on these mysteries. To understand neurological space, Dr. Leary assumes that the nervous system consists of 8 potential circuits, or gears, or mini-brains. 4 of these brains are in the usually active left lobe and are concerned with our terrestrial survival. 4 are extraterrestrial, reside in the silent or inactive right lobe, and are for use in our future evolution. This explains why the right lobe is usually inactive at this stage of our development, and why it becomes active when the person ingests psychedelics. We will explain each of the 8 brains briefly. 1. The biosurvival circuit. The invertebrate brain was the first to evolve, 2 to 3 billion years ago, and is the first activated when a human infant is born. It programs perception onto an either-or grid, divided into nurturing, helpful things, which it approaches, and noxious/dangerous things, which it flees or attacks. The imprinting of this circuit sets up the basic attitude of trust or suspicion, which will last for life. It also identifies the external stimuli, which will ever after trigger approach or avoidance. 2. The emotional circuit. The second, more advanced biocomputer formed when the vertebrates appeared and began to compete for territory, perhaps 500 million BC. In the individual, this bigger tunnel reality is activated when the DNA master tape triggers the metamorphosis from crawling to walking. As every parent knows, the toddler is no longer a passive biosurvival infant, but a mammalian politician, full of physical and psychic territorial demands, quick to meddle in family business and decision-making. Again, the first imprint on this circuit remains constant for life, unless brainwashed, and identifies the stimuli which will automatically trigger dominant aggressive behavior or submissive cooperative behavior. When we say that a person is behaving emotionally, egotistically, or like a 2-year-old, we mean that he is blindly following one of the tunnel realities imprinted on this circuit. 3. The dexterity symbolism circuit. The third brain was formed when hominid types began to differentiate from other primate stock circa 4 to 5 million BC, and is activated when the older child begins handling artifacts and sending/receiving laryngeal signals, human speech units. If the environment is stimulating to the third circuit, the child takes a bright imprint and becomes dexterous and articulate. If the environment is made of stupid people, the child takes a dumb imprint, remains more or less at a 5-year-old stage of artifact clumsiness and symbol blindness. In popular speech, the first circuit tunnel reality is generally called consciousness per se, the sense of being here, now, in this body, oriented to the survival of this body. When you are unconscious, the first circuit is anesthetized, and doctors may perform surgery on you, or enemies may attack you, and you will not evade them or flee. The second circuit, in the same vernacular language, is called ego. So-called ego is the second circuit mammalian sense of status, importance/unimportance, in the pack or tribe. The third circuit is what we generally call mind, the capacity to receive, integrate, and transmit signals produced by the hominid hand, artifacts, or the hominid 9 laryngeal muscles, speech. The imprinting of these 3 circuits determines by about age 3.5 the basic degree and style of trust/distrust that will color consciousness, the degree and style of assertiveness/submissiveness that will determine ego status, and the degree and style of cleverness/clumsiness with which mind will handle tools or ideas. In evolutionary terms, first brain consciousness is basically invertebrate, passively floating toward nurture and retreating from danger. Second brain, ego, is mammalian, always struggling for status in the tribal pecking order. Third brain, mind, is Paleolithic, hooked into human culture and dealing with life through a matrix of human-made gadgets and human-created symbolism. The fourth brain is post-hominid, specifically characteristic of Homo sapiens, the domesticated Wo man. This is 4. The sociosexual circuit. This fourth brain was formed when hominid packs evolved into societies and programmed specific sex roles for their members, circa 30,000 BC. It is activated at puberty when the DNA signals trigger the glandular release of sexual neurochemicals, and the metamorphosis to adulthood begins. The first orgasms of mating experiences imprint a characteristic sex role, which, again, is biochemically bonded and remains constant for life, unless some form of brainwashing or chemical re-imprinting is accomplished. In daily speech, Fourth Circuit imprints and tunnel realities are known as the adult personality. Masters and Johnson have demonstrated that specific sexual dysfunctions, so-called perversions, fetishes, low or no performance conditions like premature ejaculation, impotence, frigidity, etc., or imprints defined as sinful by the local tribe, are determined by specific experiences in early adolescent mating. The same is true of the equally robotic behavior of the normal, well-adjusted person. The sex role of the human is as rote and repetitious as that of any other mammal, or bird, or fish, or insect. These 4 circuits are normally all the networks of the brain ever activated. It should now be clear why Leary calls them terrestrial. They have evolved on and have been shaped by the gravitational, climactic, and energy conditions determining survival and reproduction on this kind of planet circling this variety of Type G star. Intelligent organisms born in outer space, not living at the bottom of a 4,000-mile gravity well, not competing for territory on a finite planet's surface, not limited by the forward-back, up-down, right-left parameters of earthly life, would inevitably develop different circuits, imprinted differently, and not so inflexibly Euclidean. Forward-back is the basic digital choice programmed by the biocomputer operating on Circuit 1. Either advance, go forward, sniff it, touch it, taste it, bite it, or retreat, back away, flee, escape. Up-down, the basic gravitational sense appears in all ethological reports of animal combat. Rear up, swell the body to maximum size, growl, howl, shriek, or cringe, drop the tail between the legs, murmur softly, skulk away, crawl and shrink the body size. These are domination and submission signals common to iguana, dog, bird, and the chairman of the board of the local bank. These reflexes make up Circuit 2, ego. Right-left is basic to the polarity of body design on the planet face. Right-hand dominance and associated preference for the linear left lobe functions of the brain determine our normal modes of artifact manufacture and conceptual thought, i.e., Third Circuit mind. It is no accident, then, that our logic and computer design follows the either-or binary structure of these circuits. Nor is it an accident that our geometry, until the last century, has been Euclidean. Euclid's geometry, Aristotle's logic, and Newton's physics are metaprograms, synthesizing and generalizing, first brain forward-back, second brain up-down, and third brain right-left programs. The fourth brain, dealing with the transmission of tribal or ethnic culture across generations, introduces the fourth dimension, time. Since each of these tunnel realities consists of biochemical imprints or matrices in the nervous system, each of them is specifically triggered by neurotransmitters and other drugs. To activate the first brain, take an opiate. Mother opium and sister morphine bring you down to cellular intelligence, biosurvival passivity, the floating consciousness of the newborn. This is why Freudians identify opiate addiction with the desire to return to infancy. To activate the second tunnel reality, take an abundant quantity of alcohol. Vertebrate territorial patterns and mammalian emotional politics immediately appear when the booze flows, as Thomas Nash intuitively realized when he characterized the various alcohol states by animal labels: ass drunk, goat drunk, swine drunk, bear drunk, etc. To activate the third circuit, try coffee or tea, a high-protein diet, speed, or cocaine. The specific neurotransmitter for circuit 4 has not been synthesized yet, but it is generated by the glands after pubescence and flows volcanically through the bloodstreams of adolescents. None of these terrestrial drugs change basic biochemical imprints. The behaviors which they trigger are those which were wired into the nervous system during the first stages of imprint vulnerability. The circuit 2 drunk exhibits the same emotional games or cons learned from parents in infancy. The circuit 3 mind never gets beyond the permutations and combinations of those tunnel realities originally imprinted, or abstractions associated with the imprints through later conditioning, and so forth. But all this Pavlovian, Skinnerian robotism changes drastically and dramatically when we turn to the right lobe, the future circuits, and extraterrestrial chemicals. The 4 evolving future brains are 5. The neurosomatic circuit. When this 5th body brain is activated, flat Euclidean figure ground configurations explode multi-dimensionally. Gestalt shift, in McLuhan's terms, from linear visual space to all-encompassing sensory space. A hedonic turn-on occurs, a rapturous amusement, a detachment from the previously compulsive mechanism of the first 4 circuits. I turned this circuit on with pot and tantra. The 5th circuit began to appear about 4,000 years ago in the first leisure class civilizations and has been increasing statistically in recent centuries, even before the drug revolution. A fact demonstrated by the hedonic art of India, China, Rome, and other affluent societies. More recently, Ornstein and his school have demonstrated with electroencephalograms that this circuit represents the first jump from the linear left lobe of the brain to the analogical right lobe. The opening and imprinting of this circuit has been the preoccupation of technicians of the occult, tantric shamans, and hatha yogis. While the 5th tunnel reality can be achieved by sensory deprivation, social isolation, physiological stress, or severe shock, ceremonial terror tactics as practiced by such rascal gurus as Don Juan Matisse or Aleister Crowley, it has traditionally been reserved to the educated aristocracy of leisure societies who have solved the 4 terrestrial survival problems. About 20,000 years ago, the specific 5th brain neurotransmitter was discovered by shamans in the Caspian Sea area of Asia, and quickly spread to other wizards throughout Eurasia and Africa. It is, of course, cannabis, weed, Mother Mary Jane. It is no accident that the pothead generally refers to his neural state as high or spaced out. The transcendence of gravitational, digital, linear, either or Aristotelian, Newtonian, Euclidean, planetary orientations, circuits 1 through 4, is, in evolutionary perspective, part of our neurological preparation for the inevitable migration off our home planet, now beginning. This is why so many potheads are Star Trek freaks and science fiction adepts. Berkeley, California, certainly the cannabis capital of the U.S., has a Federation trading post on Telegraph Avenue, where the well-heeled can easily spend $500 or more in a single day buying Star Trek novels, magazines, newsletters, bumper stickers, photographs, posters, tapes, etc., including even complete blueprints for the Starship Enterprise. The extraterrestrial meaning of being high is confirmed by astronauts themselves. 85% of those who have entered the free fall of zero gravity describe mystic experience or rapture states typical of the neurosomatic circuit. No photo can show how beautiful Earth looked, raves Captain Ed Mitchell, describing his illumination in free fall. He sounds like any successful yogi or pothead. No camera can show this experience because it is inside the nervous system. Freefall, at the proper evolutionary time, triggers the neurosomatic mutation, Leary believes. Previously, this mutation has been achieved artificially by yogic or shamanic training, or by the Fifth Circuit stimulant, cannabis. Surfing, skiing, skin diving, and the new sexual culture, sensuous, massage, vibrators, imported tantric arts, etc., have evolved at the same time as part of the hedonic quest of gravity. The turn-on state is always described as floating, or in Zen metaphor, 1 foot above the ground. 6. The neuroelectric circuit. The sixth brain consists of the nervous system becoming aware of itself apart from imprinted gravitational reality maps, circuit 1 through 4, and even apart from body rapture, circuit 5. Count Korzybski, the semanticist, called this state consciousness of abstracting. Dr. John Lilly calls it metaprogramming, i.e., awareness of programming one's programming. This Einsteinian relativistic contelligence, consciousness intelligence, recognizes, for instance, that the Euclidean, Newtonian, and Aristotelian reality maps are just 3 among billions of possible programs or models for experience. I turned this circuit on with peyote, LSD, and Crowley's magic metaprograms. This level of brain functioning seems to have been reported first around 500 BC among various occult groups connected by the Silk Route, Rome to North India. It is so far beyond the terrestrial tunnel realities that those who have achieved it can barely communicate about it to ordinary humanity, circuits 1 through 4, and can hardly be understood even by Fifth Circuit rapture engineers. The characteristics of the neuroelectric circuit are high velocity, multiple choice, relativity, and the fission-fusion of all perceptions into parallel science fiction universes of alternate possibilities. The mammalian politics which monitor power struggles among terrestrial humanity are here transcended, i.e., seen as static, artificial, an elaborate charade. One is neither coercively manipulated into another's territorial reality, nor forced to struggle against it with reciprocal emotional game-playing, the usual soap opera dramatics. One simply elects, consciously, whether or not to share the other's reality model. Tactics for opening and imprinting the Sixth Circuit are described and rarely experienced in advanced Raha Yoga, and in the hermetic, coded manuals of the medieval Renaissance alchemists and Illuminati. No specific Sixth Circuit chemical is yet available, but strong psychedelics like mescaline from my 1962 to 63 sacred cactus, peyote, and psilocybin from the Mexican magic mushroom, tianactol, open the nervous system to a mixed media series of Circuit 5 and Circuit 6 channels. This appropriately called tripping, as distinguished from straightforward Fifth Circuit turning on or getting high. The suppression of scientific research in this area has had the unfortunate result of turning the outlaw drug culture back toward Fifth Circuit hedonics and pre-scientific tunnel realities, the occult revival, solipsism, pop orientalism. Without scientific discipline and methodology, few can successfully decode the often frightening but philosophically crucial Sixth Circuit metaprogramming signals. Such scientists as do continue to study this subject dare not publish their results, which are illegal, and record ever wider tunnel realities only in private conversations, like the scholars of the Inquisitional era. Voltaire announced the Age of Reason 2 centuries too soon. We are still in the Dark Ages. Most underground alchemists have given up on such challenging and risky self-work and restrict their trips to Fifth Circuit erotic tunnels. The evolutionary function of the sixth circuit is to enable us to communicate at Einsteinian relativities and neuroelectric accelerations, not using third circuit laryngeal manual symbols, but directly via feedback, telepathy, and computer link-up. Neuroelectric signals will increasingly replace speech, hominid grunts, after space migration. When humans have climbed out of the atmosphere, gravity well of planetary life, accelerated sixth circuit contelligence will make possible high-energy communication with higher intelligences, i.e., ourselves in the future and other post-terrestrial races. It is charmingly simple and obvious once we realize that the spaced-out neural experiences really are extraterrestrial, that getting high and spacing out are accurate metaphors. Circuit 5, Neurosomatic Rapture, is preparation for the next step in our evolution, migration off the planet. Circuit 6 is preparation for the step after that, interspecies communication with advanced entities possessing electronic, post-verbal tunnel realities. Circuit 6 is the universal translator, often imagined by science fiction writers, already built into our brains by the DNA tape, just as the circuits of the future butterfly are already built into the caterpillar. 7. The neurogenetic circuit. The seventh brain kicks into action when the nervous system begins to receive signals from within the individual neuron, from the DNA-RNA dialogue. The first to achieve this mutation spoke of memories of past lives, reincarnation, immortality, etc. That these adepts were recording something real is indicated by the fact that many of them, especially Hindus and Sufis, gave marvelously accurate poetic vistas of evolution 1,000 or 2,000 years before Darwin, and foresaw superhumanity before Nietzsche. The Akashic records of theosophy, the collective unconscious of Jung, the phylogenetic unconscious of Groff and Ring, are three modern metaphors for this circuit. The visions of past and future evolution, described by those who have had out-of-body experiences during close-to-death episodes, also describes the trans-time circuit 7 tunnel reality. Specific exercises to trigger Circuit 7 are not to be found in yogic teachings. It usually happens, if at all, after several years of the kind of advanced Raha Yoga that develops Circuit 6 facility. The specific Circuit 7 neurotransmitter is, of course, LSD. Peyote and psilocybin produce some Circuit 7 experiences also. Circuit 7 is best considered in terms of 1977 science as the genetic archives activated by antihistone proteins, the DNA memory coiling back to the dawn of life, a sense of the inevitability of immortality and interspecies symbiosis comes to all Circuit 7 mutants. We can now see that this, also, is an evolutionary forecast, since we stand right now on the doorstep of extended longevity, leading to immortality. The exact role of the right lobe circuits and the reason for their activation in the 1960s Cultural Revolution now becomes clear, as sociologist F.M. Esfandiari writes in Upwingers, "Today, when we speak of immortality and of going to another world, we no longer mean these in a theological or metaphysical sense. People are now traveling to other worlds. People are now striving for immortality. Transcendence is no longer a metaphysical concept. It has become reality." The evolutionary function of the Seventh Circuit and its evolutionary, aeon-spanning, tunnel reality is to prepare us for conscious immortality and interspecies symbiosis. 8. The neuroatomic circuit. Hold on to your hats and breathe deeply. This is the farthest out that human intelligence has yet ventured. Consciousness probably precedes the biological unit or DNA tape loop. Out-of-body experiences, astral projection, contact with alien, extraterrestrial entities, or with a galactic overmind, etc., such as I've experienced, have all been reported for thousands of years, not merely by the ignorant, the superstitious, the gullible, but often by the finest minds among us: Socrates, Giordano Bruno, Edison, Buckminster Fuller, etc. Such experiences are reported daily to parapsychologists and have been experienced by such scientists as Dr. John Lilly and Carlos Castaneda. Dr. Kenneth Ring has attributed these phenomena to what he calls, very appropriately, the extraterrestrial unconscious. Dr. Leary suggests that Circuit 8 is literally neuroatomic, infra, supra, and metaphysiological, a quantum mechanical communication system which does not require a biological container. The attempt to construct a quantum model of consciousness and/or a conscious model of quantum mechanics by the turned-on physicists discussed previously, Professor John Archibald Wheeler, Saul Paul Sarag, Dr. Fritjof Capra, Dr. Jack Sarfati, etc., indicates strongly that the atomic consciousness, first suggested by Leary in The Seven Tongues of God, 1962, is the explanatory link which will unite parapsychology and paraphysics into the first scientific, empirical, experimental theology in history. When the nervous system is turned on to this quantum-level circuit, space-time is obliterated. Einstein's speed of light barrier is transcended. In Dr. Sarfati's metaphor, we escape electromagnetic chauvinism. The contelligence within the quantum projection booth is the entire cosmic brain, just as the micro-miniaturized DNA helix is the local brain guiding planetary evolution. As Lao Tzu said, from his own Circuit 8 perspective, the greatest is within the smallest. Circuit 8 is triggered by ketamine, a neurochemical researched by Dr. John Lilly, which is also, according to a widespread but unconfirmed rumor, given to astronauts to prepare them for space. High doses of LSD also produce some Circuit 8 quantum awareness. The neuroatomic contelligence is 4 mutations beyond terrestrial domesticity. The current ideological struggle is between Circuit 4 tribal moralists or collectivists and Circuit 5 hedonic individualists. When our need for higher intelligence, richer involvement in the cosmic script, further transcendence will no longer be satisfied by physical bodies, not even by immortal bodies hopping across space-time at warp 9. Circuit 8 will open a further frontier, new universes and realities. Beyond theology, the science and art of godmanship, as Alan Watts once wrote. It is therefore possible that the mysterious entities, angels and extraterrestrials, monotonously reported by Circuit 8 visionaries, are members of races already evolved to this level. But it is also possible, as Leary and Sarfati more recently suggest, that they are ourselves in the future. The left-lobed terrestrial circuits contain the learned lessons of our evolutionary past and present. The right-lobe extraterrestrial circuits are the evolutionary script for our future. Thus far, there have been 2 alternative explanations of why the drug revolution happened. The first is presented in a sophisticated way by anthropologist Weston LaBarre, and in an ignorant, moralistic way by most anti-drug propaganda in the schools and mass media. This explanation says, in essence, that millions have turned away from the legal down drugs to illegal high drugs because we are living in troubled times and many are seeking escape into fantasy. This theory, at its best, only partially explains the ugliest and most publicized aspect of the revolution, the reckless drug abuse characteristic of the immature. It says nothing about the millions of respectable doctors, lawyers, engineers, etc., who have turned away from Second Circuit intoxication with booze to Fifth Circuit rapture with weed. Nor does it account at all for the thoughtful, philosophical Sixth Circuit investigations of persons of high intelligence and deep sensibility, such as Aldous Huxley, Dr. Stanley Groff, Masters Houston, Alan W. Watts, Carlos Castaneda, Dr. John Lilly, and thousands of scientific and lay researchers on consciousness. A more plausible theory, devised by psychiatrist Norman Zinberg out of the work of Marshall McLuhan, holds that modern electronic media have so shifted the nervous system's parameters that young people no longer enjoy linear drugs like alcohol and find meaning only in nonlinear weed and psychedelics. This is certainly part of the truth, but it is too narrow and overstresses TV and computers without sufficiently stressing the general technological picture, the ongoing science fiction revolution, of which the most significant aspects are space migration, increased intelligence, and life extension, which Leary has condensed into his SMILE formula. Space migration plus increased intelligence plus life extension means expansion of humanity into all space-time. S.M plus I squared plus LE equals infinity. Without totally endorsing Charles Fort's technological mysticism, it's steam engines when it comes steam engine time. It is obvious that the DNA metaprogram for planetary evolution is far wiser than any of our individual nervous systems, which are, in a sense, giant robots or sensors for DNA. Early science fiction pulps, the crudities of Buck Rogers, the sophisticated science fiction of brilliant writers like Stapleton, Clarke, Heinlein, Kubrick's 2001, all were increasingly clear DNA signals transmitted through the intuitive right lobe of sensitive artists, preparing us for the extraterrestrial mutation. It is scarcely coincidental that mainstream literary intellectuals, the heirs of the Platonic aristocratic tradition that a gentleman never uses his hands, monkeys with tools, or learns a manual craft, despises both science fiction and the dope culture. Nor is it coincidental that the Whole Earth catalogs created by Stuart Brand, a graduate of Ken Kesey's Merry Pranksters, are the New Testament of the rural dropout culture, each issue bulging with tons of eco-technological information about all the manual, dexterous, gadgety know-how that Plato and his heirs consider fit only for slaves. Not surprisingly, Brand's latest publication, Coevolution Quarterly, has been largely devoted to publicizing Professor Gerard O'Neill's space habitat L5. Nor is it an accident that dopers seem to prefer science fiction to any other reading, even including the extraterrestrial-flavored Hindu scriptures and occult shamanic Circuit 6, Circuit 7 trip poets like Crowley and Hesse. The Circuit 6 drugs may have contributed much to the metaprogramming consciousness that has led to sudden awareness of male chauvinism, women's liberationists, species chauvinism, ecology, Lily's dolphin studies, Type G star chauvinism, Carl Sagan, even oxygen chauvinism, the SETI Conference, etc. The imprinted tunnel realities which identify one as white male, American, Earthian, etc., or black female, Cuban, etc., are no longer big enough to enclose our exploding contelligence. As Time magazine said on November 26, 1973, within 10 years, according to pharmacologists, they will have perfected pills and cranial electrodes capable of providing lifelong bliss for everyone on Earth. The 1960s hysteria about weed and acid was just the overture to this Fifth Circuit breakthrough. Nathan S. Klein, MD, predicts real aphrodisiacs, drugs to speed up learning, drugs to foster or terminate any behavior. Those who were burned or jailed at the beginning of the 17th century, Bruno, Galileo, etc., were forerunners of the revolution of outer technology. Those who were jailed or beaten by cops in the 1960s were forerunners of the revolution of inner technology. Star Trek is a better guide to the emerging reality than anything in the New York Review of Books. The life support and defense system engineer, Scotty, Circuit 1. The emotional, sentimental Dr. McCoy, Circuit 2. The logical science officer, Mr. Spock, Circuit 3. And the alternatively paternalistic and romantic Captain Kirk, Circuit 4, are perpetually voyaging through our future neurological history and encountering Circuit 5, 6, 7, and 8 intelligences, however crudely presented. In short, the various levels of consciousness and circuits we have been discussing and illustrating are all biochemical imprints in the evolution of the nervous system. Each imprint creates a bigger tunnel reality. In the Sufi metaphor, the donkey on which we ride becomes a different donkey after each imprint. The metaprogrammer continually learns more and is increasingly able to be aware of itself operating. We are thus evolving to intelligence studying intelligence, the nervous system studying the nervous system, and are more and more capable of accelerating our own evolution. Leary now symbolizes intelligence studying intelligence by the mark I to the second power. On the lower levels, you see with one eye, so to speak. On the higher levels, you see with many eyes. And space-time shifts from 3 Euclidean dimensions to non-Euclidean multi-dimensionality.